My name's Choque Hosein. I run a production and management company called Vandal. It's many faceted. There's more to it than just day-to-day spreadsheets. Primarily, I'm an organiser, I think, but also I think you need to be creative as well. I think you've got to have a good balance of creativity and organisation. I actually started out as a musician first, and because everyone thought I was rubbish, I had to manage myself. And that was an interesting way to start, because I started when I was 16 years of age. I met lots of people, other musicians, and basically to end up where I am now, you just had to see the mistakes that people made and the things that were successful. There is no set rule as to where you should start from, but for me personally, I never went to university, and in my opinion, I don't think it's a place where you can learn this skill set. I think you've got to be dealing with people all the time, and then you find out as you're going along which is the best way to do it. There's only so much filling in of a spreadsheet that you can be taught, and not all the people I know that do this job or are involved in the music industry never went to university. They either started off in bands or were in bands and ended up doing something else, or came from another thing, or ended up being friends of bands who ended up then going into tour managing, starting companies, seeing opportunities to start merchandising companies, things like that. So in my experience, but I do know that, big management companies now, some of them do want to have people with degrees, which is, you've got to have the smart people, which is true. But for someone, if you're working on your own, and I think if you want to work for a big company, then that's fair enough. But if you're an entrepreneur, it's an entrepreneurial business, I think, is the music industry. And I don't think you have to have a piece of paper to prove that you're good at it. The reason why I wanted to be involved in music was because I wanted to produce. And I used to turn up to gigs and say to bands when I was 15, I'm a producer, and they go, who the hell are you? You're 15, you don't know anything. But I had to find out the ways to do it by making mistakes, and I think that's probably the best way to do it, because you've got to work within the environment and got to learn how to change and adapt really quickly. And I think that's something that maybe a degree course can't teach you. I've always worked for myself, because I started off as a musician, and I've always had to work for myself, starting the projects off, the bands I was starting off, and then you end up managing them to a certain point, and then eventually when things got really busy, that's when we got managers in. So that, from those experiences, I've kind of put that into what I do for myself. But it's a risk business for sure, more so now because there's less money about, so people don't take risks. Companies don't take risks with bands anymore. Because I've been lucky that I started off as a musician, I've got other skills that I've been able to do. I can write and produce and work with other people. And then when my management company ended up coming into being, because I was seeing, even though I had a major record deal and I was like touring, I was still actually more interested in finding other talent, and I'd find things and I'd bring them into my studio and we'd record them, and I'd put records out with them, and I'd help people get record deals because I like the thrill of it. I work with lots of different people, but within this kind of scope of what I do is you do end up finding little teams of people that you're going to employ to do different things. So there'll be certain photographers that you'll always use, or there'll be certain designers that you like to use. And that's because it's like any job, you find people who are on the same wavelength as you and you tend to stick with them, or or people who are open to change, who are that you'll say, well, actually, I can't do this. What about using that? But you just find like-minded people to work with. There's no hard and fast rules, really. You are like a football manager. You build a little team to achieve certain goals and get to certain places with that artist, and then you might have to do it differently with somebody else, because it all involves personalities. My career's been pretty stable because I've done lots of different things within music, and even though they've involved different aspects of it, from making movies to producing, I've never had goals to have a long-term career. I've just been quite lucky to have fallen into the right places at the right time, and basically things that I've been quite surprised at, things that I've done and people have backed it, whether it be running a label or starting a band, or all the different aspects of the industry, the different things I do, and even down to being asked to make covers for another band and things like that. But that's just because I like all levels of creativity within the industry, and I find it quite fascinating and fulfilling to be involved in all parts of it. So I've never had to worry about, well, if I can't do that, my time in this is gone. I've worked all over the place. I've worked with lots of different types of artists, like from ethnic right through to rockabilly, and lots of different types of music, and worked in some of the worst studios possible, but those being the most enjoyable times, and worked in the best studios possible. And I can guarantee you, in one experience was probably the worst experience I ever had. It all comes down to the people, and I'd rather work with a load of nice people in a studio that's got the worst microphone than work with a load of horrible people in the studio that's got the best microphone. I am based wherever my phone is or my iPad. I don't need to be in my house or in an office to do my job. You can be anywhere, which is the great thing about where we are now. So unless you're a big organisation where you're going to need people to come and work for you and you've got a big workload, but as starting out, most people started out. I remember a friend of mine telling me he started out with a bag of 2 pence pieces, 5 pence pieces and 10p's, because he used to use the phone box on the corner to book his mates' band gigs. So it's whatever's available at the time, but and it works. So when you're starting out, you don't need to be in an office. Why create unnecessary overhead? I've never really made those efforts to overkill networking, because by association doesn't get you anywhere, as I've found. So I think a lot of self-belief and belief in what you're working with is paramount, and if it's good enough, people will ring you. If that's what you're wanting to do, there's only so much talking that's going to get you anywhere. It's all actually down to the music and the creativity of the people involved. If something's great, word of mouth is the best thing. A manager shouldn't have to go out and talk it up. If it's got to that point, then you are Arsene Wenger of the music industry. What I like about my job is freedom, absorption of other creatives as well, enjoying the processes of making records, putting out records, enjoying watching the bands I work with on stage. I think basically the creative processes are the thing I like best, and once that's done, then it becomes the job of then putting together everything that you've created and and parceling it up and then delivering, and that's when it becomes more of a job. And then if the success comes with whatever you're working with, it kind of lightens up a bit and it becomes a little bit easier. My biggest challenges are usually trying to find once I've got one project away, is then finding the next thing to work with, so that is an ongoing process again all the time. Those are the challenges, and also making people understand who you're working with, that it can be fun. It doesn't all have to be chin stroking, because I kind of really didn't understand it when I was younger, when I was about 16, 17, really understand that actually there is a light side to this, being in music. I thought it was all about being very, very serious. Most people who are very, very good, who are really amazing, are also very quick-witted. So I was like, my biggest challenge is finding funny people to work with. Because of what I'm doing now is more of a production and a management, in a management capacity, there's no need for me to be up till 4 o'clock in the morning staring at a computer screen. Well, some people might think there is, but I don't think there is. Once other people and the people that you're dealing with, you've got to have downtime from that. But I'd say as a musician, I think you've got to put a lot of work in as a musician in the production and making of records. There's a lot of hours involved. Management, there is a lot of hours involved, but you're not having to work as intensely through 24/7. It's only if, depending on where you get with an artist, as to then if it gets that big, then that's when you build a bit more of a team. For me, it's going to festivals and watching bands and watching music on big stages. That's my perk. It's not a place of euphoria 24/7. I'd say it's euphoric for about 5 minutes, and then you've got to get on with the business of what you're doing, of either performing or dealing with your band after they come off stage, or it has its moments. It's great fun. I mean, I still get a thrill watching a band pack the van ready to go off on tour, and I think that we've made that happen. That's exciting. Well, my 3 top tips to be successful are: work hard, always listen to what other people say, even if you disagree with them. The most important thing you've got to remember is just be organised. When it comes to the health of the music scene in any city, and I wouldn't say Leeds is unique, it's the only thing that makes it different are the personalities there, but and those people that can drive it forward, and therefore at any one point that could change by the day as to where a city is with its music scene. When you look at any big city, there are certain people in that city who are driving forces, and they might not even be in the music industry. In a way, they might be in another industry, just talking about it, which itself gives inspiration to everybody else. I don't personally agree that there are scenes in cities. I think there are people in cities making music. If somebody tells you they know what's happening, I would beg to differ, because somewhere that you don't know about, there's something happening in another little corner of the city which we don't even know about. So you can't say there is a scene per se, because each little community within a city has got its own little things going on. You might have a guy running in a little village somewhere, running a night that might get 200 people. That's a scene within itself. That's not happening in the Leeds city centre. Everything's happening everywhere, because of the more to do with the fact that because of the way that the city is, there isn't those kind of places where you can have gigs now. So people have to make things up themselves even more now. And so one week it's here, next week it's there, it's somebody else doing it. So I don't buy into there being a scene. There are the props that hold it up, the venues, and there is the people who sell the tickets, there are people who put the shows on. But I don't think one person or a group of people is running the music scene in Leeds.